The One Piece's ancient kingdom's name has finally been revealed. Well, kinda. After the latest chapter of One Piece, chapter 1113, there's been a lot of talk about one specific thing. So if you haven't read the chapter, I suggest get out of here. And that was the beginning to Vegapunk's message, that the One Piece world that we know now will sink into the sea. But if you haven't watched my first video, I suggest you do so, because I'm about to take you on a journey and show you why Oda is a madman. This is part 2 of the sinking world theory. Throughout the series, Oda has been giving us hints that the world that we know will sink. One was that this kingdom were all built in a way to control the flow of water. And after everything that happened in the Lucia kingdom, the sea levels began to rise because of the earthquakes. And when that happened, we got to see 3 notable figures: Momonosuke, Iceberg, and Laboon. First, he'll make an island that's capable of floating on the sea, because the Roger pirates made it to the last island and learned the history of the world. Crocus basically building a house inside of Laboon, Rayleigh starting a business coding ships that can survive underwater, Odin going back to Wano wanting to open the borders for the arrival of Joy Boy. Wano will be very important later. More hints sprinkled about with the creation of Noah essentially preparing for a giant flood, Robin seeing the creation of a bridge that's supposed to connect all the islands that's been being built for over 700 years, and even Marijois, the celestial dragons, taking over the highest point in the world on top of the Red Line. But now it's time to talk about the ancient kingdom. In my last video, I talked about the Mud Flood theory and the Tartarian Empire and how One Piece kinda has the same themes. But to tell you the name of the ancient kingdom, we need to talk about mythology. First, I would like to mention Shirahoshi, also known as Poseidon. Poseidon is the name given to the Greek god of the sea, and Shirahoshi is the daughter of Neptune, and Neptune is the Roman god of the sea. Her value was already high because she's an ancient weapon, but her value now skyrockets because of Vegapunk's message that the world will sink. In a weird twist of fate, we have one of the most ambitious and powerful people in all the One Piece verse, Blackbeard, being at the biggest disadvantage now if the world continues to sink. And during the Egghead Island arc, we learned a couple things. One, that Teach has a special lineage, and that he's aiming for the world. But with this message from Dr. Vegapunk, Blackbeard is probably sweating because his entire crew has eaten devil fruits. And on the flip side, Shanks' entire crew has not eaten devil fruits, and he was also on Roger's crew, so probably why. Here's why Blackbeard always ends up winning. The world may have a Vegapunk, but Blackbeard has a Caribou. Caribou, the man who knows 2 things: the location of Poseidon and the location of Pluton. 2 things that will aid Blackbeard heavily. Pluton, another Roman god in mythology. Pluton, a powerful warship that can sink islands, which would be very beneficial if the world begins to flood. Poseidon, aka Shirahoshi, someone who can control the Sea Kings, the kings of the sea. If Blackbeard's able to get his hands on both or even one of them, the odds are in his favor. When I mentioned Ragnarok and the destruction of the Red Line in my last video, a lot of people said that, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense because Luffy's going to be the one to destroy Fishman Island. But I don't think it's going to be Luffy. Blackbeard is always winning. And in this situation right here, Connery and Devon touched Saturn and they said mission complete. Irene Devon has a mythical devil fruit, the 9-tailed fox, and is able to transform into pretty much anyone. Because it's the mythical zone of Bon Clay's fruit, I think her abilities are even that much stronger. Even if they can't capture Shirahoshi, I wouldn't be surprised that she can actually use Shirahoshi's ability as an ancient weapon. The destruction of Fishman Island is not the hands of Luffy, but Connery and Devon, the Blackbeard pirates, going after the ancient weapon. To continue, we have to go back to Skypiea. Skypiea, but Jaya. Jaya is actually interesting for a couple things. First meeting between Blackbeard and Luffy when he said people's dreams won't ever end. Also because of Jaya's map. Jaya's map has been really interesting to me for one big reason, but I'll talk about that after I give you a little bit of context. Drop the Pizza made a video a little bit ago talking about the poles of the One Piece world. Essentially, After Law said this: northeast is the most direct route after leaving Wano, and made everyone rethink the actual One Piece map. Drop the Pizza said this: most of the fans know that the Grand Line was located at the equator and the Red Line goes through the Prime Meridian. Law's explanation: the Grand Line is not located at the equator and the North Pole is actually located in the North Blue. Always thought something like that because of Jaya's map. Southbird, whose head is always inclined to point south. Look at this map of Jaya and tell me if you don't see something. Yeah, the Southbird is basically within the islands. When we look at the map of Jaya, we see the compass pointing this as south. And now looking at the complete map and seeing that is actually south. Then Law's explanation solidifies it for me because the North Pole actually moves. The South Bird on the Jaya map was always pointing to true south. Put on your One Piece tinfoil cap because now things are going to get crazy. Because that map, I started to look at things in Skypiea backwards. The knock-up stream sent an island that's supposed to be on the seafloor into the sky, and now other islands are sinking. The Descendants of Mont Blanc were looking for El Dorado in the depths of the sea when it was actually in the sky. Elves were claiming to be a kami or a god, but it was actually Luffy. The Shandians were rooting for Luffy to ring the bell, and then afterwards we were looking at him like he was a god, but he was actually their god, the sun god. Get the gist. Shandians cheer for a sun god. Let's also pray to a sun god. And also the Buccaneers. Remember I said we need to talk about mythology and looking at things backwards. Like the Shandians, Giants, the Buccaneers, and many other people were cheering for the arrival of the sun god, so was the Romans, at least in Roman mythology. Pray to the goddess Aurora. In Roman mythology, Aurora renews herself every morning and flies across the sky announcing the arrival of the sun. There's one thing to note about Aurora. She has 2 siblings, Sol and Luna, sun and moon. Sol is a personification of the sun and the god in Roman religion. Luffy, the sun god. You're thinking, Luna, who's Luna? Remember, I looked at everything backwards in Skypiea. Maybe a stretch, but you know, just roll with me. Luna, the goddess of the moon, spelled backwards. A-N-U-L. Anul. Enel, the self-proclaimed god who went to the moon and then became the god of the moon. Sol and Luna. Enel, the direct opposite of Luffy. And if you made it this part of the video, you're probably still wondering, what's the name of the ancient kingdom? Well, I'm getting there because I needed Enel's cover story to help me. Remember I said a lot of things in Skypiea were happening backwards? That includes Enel. Enel went to the moon because he believed that's where the Kambis are supposed to reside. And after getting there, he realized not only was that not the case, the people who were gods before actually left and went to the blue planet, to the blue sea. But one thing Enel did learn on the moon is that the people who lived on the moon were a very advanced civilization. And it was most likely them who started the ancient kingdom. And there's one interesting thing about the kingdoms of One Piece, they all kind of follow a theme. Wano being Japan, Gorosei, Spain, Alabasta, Egypt. I and many others believe that the ancient kingdom will have a Greek/Rome theme. You're looking right here, it kind of has a Colosseum. The real place Enel was supposed to go was where the gods reside on the blue sea. I said Wano's going to be important because a lot of this now has to do with moon lore. Firstly, we know that Odin, after finding out the world's secrets, wanted to open the borders for Joy Boy. We know that opening the borders does two things. Not only does it make Wano vulnerable, but also releases Pluton onto the world. He was praying for the arrival of Joy Boy. He knew that the world would be changing regardless, and Pluton is probably a way not only to protect the people of Wano, but also have them be safe when the world begins to sink. Now, we know that Wano has a lot of ties to the moon. From the crescent moon on Odin's kimono, all the daimyos have a name that correlates to the moon, Toki coming from the past and having crescent moons adorned on her being Amotsuki, which means heavenly moon, to the Mink tribe of Zou being close allies to the Kozuki clan, and we know what happens when they look at a full moon, they have feral memories of their past. The moon lore runs deep, especially with Enel's cover story. Professor Tsukimi eating dumplings looking at the moon, and Tsukimi actually means moon viewing or moon gazing, and he was able to bring automatas that traveled to the moon on Karakuri Island, the island on which Vegapunk is from. It's important because Enel found a city named Burka that actually had these automatas already built, showing the people of the moon were really advanced in technology. And the people of the moon people, or the ancient kingdom, was like a utopia. To pay attention to this name, Fairy Verth, the name given to the moon, also means fairy earth, but the sky people also just call it Verth. And that brings it all the way back to Wano once more. It was once known as the country of gold. Found out that Shandora is actually El Dorado, the city of gold, and it has poneglyphs on it. Poneglyphs only written by people of Wano. Those borders are erected waiting for the arrival of Joy Boy. Joy Boy, who has close ties to fishermen who also have poneglyphs on their island. Wano also houses one of the ancient weapons, and Frankie was surprised that humans built it. It was possibly built by the ancient kingdom, or that clan that the Sea Kings talked about. The people of Wano are also the creators of the poneglyphs, but there's a poneglyphs on level 3 of Impel Down. Old Wano is under New Wano, but New Wano has no harmony to it. Even though this is one big country, the weather changes from place to place. The reason why I'm saying this is because Wano has such a big connection to almost everything in Wano. Possible that Wano holds the name of the ancient kingdom. And I mentioned Roman mythology throughout this whole thing because the name of this kingdom is actually going to be Roman or Latin. And I say all that because Oda loves wordplay. When I look at Verth, it also means earth, but what I also saw was heart. Heart of the Roman Empire, Rome. Meaning of One Piece, Romance Dawn would be the last island. Remember how I said Oda loves wordplay? By showing Wano like this, a country without harmony, how I explained before how Wano has ties to all these places, each of these places are different and belong somewhere else. Wano was called the country of gold but has no gold, but Shandora does. Oda refers to Wano as Wa no Kuni, which is actually the old name for Japan, meaning Wano country. It also be written as the country of harmony. But now it's a place without harmony, meaning that name belongs to somewhere else. Ancient kingdom of harmony, Concordia. Like the moon people houses people from all different walks of life, shows the harmony within society. Very opposite of what the celestial dragons want now. Remember how I said a lot of things are shown backwards? From this we can actually know what the D stands for. Will of D is actually